Hey everybody, I'm Josh Schachter, founder and CEO of UpdateAI and host of Unchurned. Welcome to this week's episode. I'm really excited. Joining me today is Teresa Anansia, SVP of Global Customer Success, Renewals, and Customer Experience at Zendesk. I think we all know Zendesk, but just as a quick refresher, Zendesk, makes customer service better through their SaaS platform. We'll ask Teresa a little bit more about Zendesk. They have close to 6,000 employees. They were founded in Copenhagen, which is actually something I didn't realize until doing research for this episode. And with over $1 billion in revenues, but with goals to go far beyond that. And a fun fact about Zendesk is that they recently, the board recently voted and agreed for the company to go private. They were acquired by Primera and H&F, two private equity firms that are very active in the SaaS space. Teresa, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to be here.
So I gave a really kind of coarse and quick description of Zendesk, but tell us in your own words about Zendesk and about your role at Zendesk.
Sure. So, we help customers create awesome CX experiences. That's our platform. I love it because we also enable customers to create better employee experiences because we believe that having great employee engagement and happy employees creates great customer moments. So I really am passionate about the CX space. So it's kind of fun because the customers I talk to are the ones like me that are trying to figure this all out. My role at Zendesk is, as you said, I lead the global customer success and renewals and CX teams. We have a 170,000 customers. So it really takes, a very intentional design of how they engage at every level. And I love that we have some of the leadership at our company, completely bought in that customer is owned by everyone and we all need to do the right thing. So we have a lot of great collaboration with the cross-functional groups that help us meet our customers' needs and help them get a good ROI out of our solution.
It was how many? 137,000 customers?
170,000 customers. Yeah.
70. Sorry, I don't want to cut you guys short. 170,000. This isn't users. This is customers. This is accounts.
Paying customers. Yes.
That's amazing. So, so surely there's a conversation for us to be had about scaling through digital and about segmentation. We'll see if we get there on the show. So I want to kick things off with you. The name of our podcast is Unchurned. Of course, it's in homage to churn, our favorite metric, or actually probably our least favorite metric. But we want to get raw and authentic with you and really kind of get to know Teresa. So a couple of quick questions for you up front. Where were you born and where do you live now?
Born and still in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, East Coast, and kind of acts like a Midwest type of environment here. So a lot of my time has been spent here, raising a family, being around my family. But I can say my second home is San Francisco. That's where our company is headquartered. And I have a global team, so I travel everywhere, but San Francisco feels like a second home.
As an SVP of a 6,000 person SaaS company based out of San Francisco, how often do you travel?
Almost now, I will say it's different than pre-COVID, but now I'd say every other week on average. Some weeks back to back, some like this last round, I have 2 weeks in my home-based office, but prior to COVID, it was a lot more. So I think we're all navigating some of the new world order and doing more digital first, which I think has been a brilliant way to kind of have the best of both worlds.
And we talked about Pittsburgh a little bit before. I happen to just have this love for the city of Pittsburgh. I've never been there this time of year, but I can only imagine, we're filming this right now in late October, that it's absolutely gorgeous with all the foliage that surrounds the city. Is Pittsburgh, Amazon was considering Pittsburgh as a finalist for their HQ2 a couple of years ago. You've got some of the most advanced institutions in certain types of technology. You've got a lot of things going on with AI in Pittsburgh and robotics, I believe. Do you see any of the tech scene? Is Pittsburgh the hotbed of tech of Western Pennsylvania?
I would say that we've shifted certainly our brand from the steel times, where we were well known. In fact, I was an auditor at Ernst & Young for years, and my main, clients were U.S. Steel and National Steel. And so that is completely shifted to being, I would say, very healthcare and tech focused. We have some excellent, like incubated companies coming out of Carnegie Mellon University, a lot of startups, a lot of great students. So I do think tech is a thing for us. We're also known to be one of the best food cities. Not sure if you knew that.
I did know that, actually. And for everybody that's not as familiar with Pittsburgh, tell us what's up with yins. Like, what is this yins thing?
I never adopted that. I mean, I just think that's a thing we make fun of, but I don't think there's that much going on in Pittsburgh where, I find anyone around me or friends and family saying that, but we do make a lot of fun about it. And we're also known for like some of our, again, our cheesesteaks and some of the things we try to adopt from Philadelphia, which, is a much more cool city in Pennsylvania. We often get compared to, but we make it fun. And it is a great, I'll say, place to raise a family. And I do think that when my kids come back home, they often say they do miss, and it's surprising because none of them want to live here, but they all miss it.
Okay. We'll move off of Pittsburgh, but wonderful city. Go visit or whatever if you're listening. What's one thing that might surprise people to know about you?
Well, I've taken up pickleball recently, so I have found time to put into my day some pickle, ball time, as well as I love working out every day. So I would just say that's probably something, because people know me to be a hard worker and I'm always online, and, that isn't always good, but it is just who I am. And yet I find my space because I get very energized by, doing fitness, and at least once or twice a day.
Once or twice a day. Mm-hmm. How do you manage that? And is that critical to your effectiveness in your role?
Yeah, I think it is. Like, I don't even take my cell phone, and that's the only place I don't take my cell phone. And it's morning and then in the evening if I can. So I bookend my day with it because I love the charge I get. I love the sense of, balancing the chaos in, the world, and also just business is, I'm very passionate about what I do, and it's just extremely busy. And I just need that to stay sane. And I really build that culture in my team. I make sure that people know, we can't really manage everyone's like time off and I don't think you'll see programs continue forever that, give this recharge availability based on what we went through with COVID. But I think we should all learn something from that we need that work-life balance. It's essential to making us better at work and just happier, which I think is part of, why we should exist.
What's one book that everybody listening should read that's helped you through your journey?
Well, I'm in 2 book clubs, believe it or not. So people might get annoyed with this because it's like 700 pages, but I loved Crossroads. And it's very character driven, and you get to really know these characters, and I'm waiting for the movie, but I think it's a great read. It's one that kept me very engaged. Now, quicker reads, I'm all for too. There's a lot of good ones there too. And I do read a lot of business books, but I recommend you sprinkle in some just, things you don't have to think about work.
Yeah, it sounds like you have very well-rounded hobbies. So let's talk about Zendesk, and let's talk about the customer experience journey at Zendesk. Your title, like we mentioned, is Senior Vice President of Global Customer Success, Renewals, and Customer Experience. So I asked you this before we started recording. Is that just a really long title, or does that actually represent the composition of your team? So tell us, how is your group laid out?
Yeah, it is actually different business units. So I have a customer success organization, I have a renewals organization, and then I have a practice team. And real quick, the customer success organization, I have broken into kind of two big groups. One is led by region leaders. So think of, a mayor, EMEA, APAC, LATAM, and each of those organizations manage people that are assigned to customers. So this would be like your medium touch, your high touch, your most, mid-market to upper end of your pyramid. And then within customer success, I've also globalized them. I think it's a really good best practice, a scaled group that is also global, but it's led by a leader that really understands the difference in scale, the importance of data, insights, process, automation. So they work together, and my region leaders obviously, depend on that scaled team because they own the whole number. Then on the renewal side, we're organized the same way, geo-based, by region. And so all of my AMER CS leaders have an AMER counterpart in renewals. There's really good synergy for the handoff there, which I think is super important. And then my practice team is more like the unicorns. I mean, frankly, it's a small team. I think there's about 25 or so. And we have different groups in that organization, but they are really responsible for doing all the cross-functional work that is so critical in designing out great customer experiences end to end, not just within my CS practice, but with the product team, with the support organization, with professional services, et cetera. So I love that Zendesk has understood the importance of that cross-functional collaboration because it's really made a difference in the way we engage.
So I want to go back to that. We're talking about, your people right now, and I want to stay on that. But then when we talk about process, I want to go back to that practice team that you have, because I think it's a really interesting thing about the cross-functional alignment. What's the culture of your team? If you were to describe it in one word, what is the culture that you've built and are trying to build within your org?
Probably one word would be empathic. I need them and want them and expect them to be empathic about our customers' needs and to be able to match their needs with our solution and then show the value of that solution in the entire life cycle with that customer, making that renewal event a non-event, assuring customer loyalty, and then, ultimately the business goal that we map to is going to be NER, right? The net expansion of that account, and retention is at the foundation of that. So avoiding churn at all costs.
At all costs. So, and how many people do you have in your org overall?
Well, in the CS organization, probably like 250.
And then across renewals and the practice group as well. That's all included.
No. So like the renewals team might be another 50. And then the practice team I mentioned is like in the 20s.
Okay. So a little over 300. That's a large organization to create culture of empathy. How do you do that? Where does that start? Does that start with the hiring? Is it training? What is that? How do you instill that?
Well, I do think it starts with our culture as a company, which is, then part of our hiring process. I mean, one word that Zendesk uses that I think really embodies a lot of the culture fit is going to be humbledent, which is the combination of being humble and also confident. And that's what I expect in the way we show up. I want confidence in our solutions. I want my team being at the table with the customer and having a point of view. That also shows confidence. But I look at humbleness as a way to, first of all, curiosity, being great questioners, being able to ask great questions to understand, but then also admit when we're wrong, admit when something didn't go right, and then how do we solve it? So it shows up in everything. It shows up in the people we hire. It shows up in the enablement training we do. It shows up in the way we interact with the customer, the way we handle issues, escalations. I think that, and then the other thing is empowerment. Like, you only gave me one word, but I really do want my people to feel empowered, because it's that mindset of recognizing that when you're, interacting with our customers. And even if it's in a scaled motion that is a little bit, lighter touch versus a very high touch engagement where you might only have a smaller portfolio, you need to be able to make decisions. You need to be able to corral the resources that the customer requires and not have to go through significant, let's say management layers or so down into the individual contributor level. I want my organization to feel empowered. And that kind of gets into the processes we build, the products, the things that they have available to them so that they can do their jobs and actually enjoy it. I hope. That's the goal.
I gave you one word, but I think you gave me back four, if I was counting correctly. I have here empowerment, humility, curiosity, and empathy, where you started. That sound about right? Is that better?
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. So you have this team that you've set up with that proper culture. And then there's a process, right? The first P is the team, is the people. The second P is kind of my own personal framework of the three Ps of successful, high-performing teams. But the second would be process. What's your process? You've got 170,000 customers, like you said. How do you guys do it? How do you deliver great customer experience to everybody?
Well, this has been a journey. It's evolved. I'm not saying that we have it all figured out, but I feel like some of the ways we do this today are, they're embodying all the learnings I've had along the way. I've been at this for a good amount of time. So first of all, it starts, in my opinion, with segmentation. And segmentation is super critical. And I feel very strongly that the old traditional methods of just an arbitrary like ARR spend line is not the way to do it. So we have implemented what we call dynamic segmentation. And it's really about just looking at more attributes about the customer than just their spend level to determine not only which customers we want to assign, which means like get that higher or medium touch treatment, but also who we assign. So we're looking at things like spend and potential spend. So the growth potential. This is a very pragmatic way to think about it. It doesn't have to be, baked in with third-party data and all sorts of, predictive models. You can use some basic telemetry to determine like who has the growth potential in our base that might not yet be spending very much with Zendesk. So we want to cover those accounts instead of leaving them to like a digital self-serve experience. So anyway, segmentation is the first. And then some of what we use to determine who to assign might be industry, use case, just to build a little specialization in who we assign. So it's not just a, one size fits all approach. And those engagements can be more relevant. Then what we do is we think about touch points.
You're the first person actually in everyone that I've spoken to in CS. I find this fascinating. You're the first that's actually mentioned divvying things out by industry. And I myself have as the owner of a company in the CS world, I've thought about industry often, and it's a tough thing to think about, but Can you talk a little bit more about that, like how you guys break it down by industry?
Sure. Yeah, and I want to be clear because I have a point of view on this. We have tried starting with industry, like literally the segmentation being about the industries and having a very strong line between the customer industry and the CSM assigned. And I'm not a proponent of that. I use industry as once I determine who my highest value customers are, medium, and then the digital only or the scaled tech touch. Then we are looking at, region. You have to think about sub-region, right? Because you try to map to sales. Then you have to also think about language. Once you do all of that, when you're starting to actually assign the human, that's where I think industry matters. Now, will I build all these people that have all these great industry specializations? No, my resources and investment have not been sufficient for that. However, if it works where I'm going to be assigning 25 accounts to 3 or 4 CSMs and I can match up industry to build specialization or to what they bring to the table, I'm going to do it every time. The other thing we do to make this more pragmatic is we track skills of our team. So if someone's coming in with a great banking or finance industry skill set, it's available in our skills tracker, so that, let's say I assign a CSM that doesn't have like a fine fintech or a retail experience because I just don't have the luxury of all those resources, they can leverage those SMEs to engage on that account.
And so they're all able to assist each other to your people based on those skills.
That's part of the dynamic part of what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little bit of a team-based model there.
Correct.
How are you using Zendesk in your operations?
Yeah, so we use it, we use it extensively. I mean, we use it to manage our entire support operation. And then my organization uses it extensively for collaboration. So what we're doing is we're engaging in tickets that our customers have with our own advocacy. That's our support agents. And we're using it to not only help, navigate the context of the customer and make sure my CSMs are weighing in on matters that might require their attention, but it's also a great way to get that customer 360 of what experience they had in support. So we link the critical metrics about, the customer from our Explorer dashboard to, I use other tools in success like Gainsight, Salesforce.com. They're all interconnected. So, we really believe, and I even promote for my customers, that look, it's not like a monolithic, tech offering in my opinion, that gives best in breed. Like, you need best in breed to be able to do the right job in the right function. And so I believe support agents and customer experience folks are in their perfect world in Zendesk. But there might be other groups like sales and even CS that might require other tools. The way we as leaders need to ensure that that doesn't come across to the customer as some disparate experience is through integration and building out a customer 360. So that's what we do.
It sounds like you're not cheapening out on your team, that you've really chosen to invest in the tools that will empower them, like you said earlier.
Yes.
And so you're big users of your own platform, of course, which is best in class for support. You're advocates of Gainsight, one of the leading CS platforms, and of course Salesforce. What else do you guys use? Like, what else is in your stack?
I mean, those are really the critical ones. Everyone has their Datadog or their ways of, managing some of the telemetry that our customers require. But no, those are really the big ones. And then, one other quick thing I want to mention is that I'm really big. We talked about process, in, workflow automation, and how do you design experiences that your CSMs and or support agents should have in engaging with the customer. So one of my biggest methods in process is to surface, the touch point plan, the way we engage, along with playbooks. I feel like that has really brought about consistency, outcome driven engagements, not just random ones. It frees up my CSMs to be thinking more creatively because they don't have to think about the, regular time-based interactions that are needed, or even the ad hoc ones that are behavior-based, like at-risk plays or expansion plays. They can free up to be more creative. So I'm a big advocate of a playbook, and I feel like that catalog that we have is really helping us scale.
You're talking about requiring them to make less decisions of the things that can be templated so that they're able to save a little bit of brain power and energy to think about the more strategic one-off types of events and situations. Did I paraphrase that correctly?
That's exactly right. And manage a growing book of business. I mean, we all know about ratios in the space, and I would say we have some of the widest. I manage it to make sure we're not going too wide. But the way you balance that, especially in tough macroeconomic times like we're in right now, where there's a constraint on resources, is to surface for that CSM where to go next. What are the insights about their portfolio, even if they only have 10 accounts or 8 accounts or 5 accounts? It matters. So I use the Gainsight as a workflow automation tool, but really at the foundation is the content, the playbooks, and then the data and insights. And if you can put those things together, it can be something beautiful.
I want to close us out on something that you just mentioned, which is we're in tough economic times. Mm-hmm. So we're in right now, Q4 2022. A long Pittsburgh-style winter is coming.
The Arctic freeze.
Yes. Yeah, right. And I can tell talking to you, Teresa, we don't know each other, but I can tell you're a fighter, right? You're a pugilist. You're punchy. You've got moxie, spirit, energy, resilience, resolve. Tell me when to stop. I'll keep going, right? Strength. But what are you telling your team about this long winter that's coming, the doom and gloom of SaaS, the doom and gloom? I haven't looked at Zendesk's, stock prices, but presumably like every other one, it's taken a hit. I don't know. Right. So like it is tough right now. Psychology is tough on folks. As the fighter, what are you telling people?
Yeah. It's super critical. And I have to tell you, the more communication, the better. At times like this, I'm doing AMAs, ask me anything. I'm doing listening sessions. I'm doing small circles, and I'm having my leadership do small circles where people can share, because this is a really difficult time. And by the way, you mentioned at the beginning, we're being acquired. So imagine the additional amount of change management from that. My big thing is we're in this together. That is my true, authentic belief. There is a lot going on in the SaaS space, and let's be together through this, because it isn't like looking elsewhere is going to change the macroeconomic conditions. But how we do that is through empathy, right? Being there for each other, recognizing that no one's in it alone. We're in it together, being completely clear that it is psychologically safe to share your concerns, ask your tough questions, raise your voice at the table. So those things I think have resonated. And then I've also inspired my leaders to recognize that they may have never seen this before, right? I have. I've been through this. And again, that just speaks to my tenure, my experience. But many of my leaders, many of my ICs have not seen this. And what I share with them is the stories of how I or others have gotten through this period. And the fact is that we will get through this. And my leaders can learn something really different and new about how to navigate tough times, where they might have had all this great experience in the rocket ship growth and the unlimited funds and the unlimited headcount. And now's the time to build into their story how to live within constraints. And I think it's a great leadership experience. It's going to be tough. And I just recommend staying really close to your people. I think now more than ever.
It does build resilience. It does build self-confidence in your future self.
That's right.
It's tough, like navigating through uncertainty. And I know this as a startup founder, it will challenge you in ways that you've never been challenged before.
That's right.
But you'll come out of it a lot stronger if you're intentional, if you're kind of sticking, if you know that going in, that there's lessons to be learned, to take away from this, and to be present during these kind of challenging times. But know that there will be a silver lining, and the sky will turn blue soon. Yeah.
Exactly. And let's learn while we're doing this together, and try to fail fast. And also, if we're making some mistakes, that's going to just make us better when we come out of this.
Teresa, thank you so much for being on the show. It was a great pleasure chatting with you. And
it's fun.
Do this again. Thanks a lot.
Great. Thanks.